Let me ask you something. Who owns Lagos? Like, who actually owns Lagos? If you think it's just politicians, you might be wrong. You see, there's a family that helped build one of the most expensive real estates in Nigeria, to claim land from the Atlantic Ocean and build the hotel President Sleep in. And somehow they almost never trend. This is the story of the Chagoury family. The Chagouries weren't born into Nigeria's oil wealth, they weren't political royalties, they were immigrants. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, thousands of Lebanese families left their homeland, escaping economic hardship, political instability, and the crash of the Ottoman Empire. And you see, West Africa became one of their main destinations, not because it was easy, but because it was open. They arrived with no land, no political offices, and no title. Just one skill that has been passed down from their ancestors: trade. Many Lebanese families entered into small-scale commerce, import and export, and construction material. And in colonial West Africa, these families filled the gap between European colonial firms and local markets. They became middlemen, suppliers, and builders. They were basically just immigrants who understood supply and demand in a foreign African country. And over time, some of these families didn't just trade goods, they built relationships. And relationships in a developing country is currency. And you see, the Chagoury brothers found themselves in this same system. They weren't just immigrants who found themselves in Lagos. They understood how the supply and demand worked and how relationship mattered in any business. And you see, this was the foundation. But who exactly are the Chagoury brothers? Gilbert Chagoury and Ronald Chagoury. Born into a Lebanese immigrant family that had already settled into West African trade network, and as expected, they inherited martial instincts. Now, here is where the story changes, because in the 1970s and 80s, Nigeria had oil money, and for the first time, the country was ambitious. New roads, new ports, new building, industrial expansion. But now there was a problem. Nigeria had money, but not always the technical capacity to execute complex infrastructure at scale. And at the same time, the Chagoury Group was created, and it wasn't created to be famous, but to consolidate. And instead of scattered trading businesses, they formalized operations. They expanded into construction and engineering. And most importantly, they built relationships with financial institutions. And in Nigeria, scale requires structure. Many immigrants stayed in trade, but the Chagoury family moved to something much more powerful: heavy infrastructure. In unstable systems and countries, people who build votes outlast people who read speeches. And by the time Lagos started dreaming bigger, the Chagouries weren't outsiders anymore, they were already inside the business. If you've ever attended a wedding at Eko Hotels, or driven past Victoria Island at night, or seen the large city rising above the Atlantic Ocean, then you've seen the Chagouries. Eko Hotels and Suites is not just a hotel, it's where presidents stay. It's where billion-dollar contracts are being whispered. But you see, Eko Hotel and all other endeavors were just preparation. The real deal was Eko Atlantic, the land reclaimed from the Atlantic, designed to stop coastal erosion, now envisioned as a new financial district with multi-billion-dollar private and public partnership deals already made. They didn't just build houses, they developed land. Eko Atlantic is one of the most ambitious urban projects in Africa right now. Skyscrapers, financial centers, luxury residents. I mean, this is a city within a city. Chagouries didn't run for office, they didn't campaign, they built. Now, here's where the story becomes a little complicated. Gilbert Chagoury was conferred with the honor of the GCON, which is the Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, which is one of Nigeria's highest national honors. And to supporters, this was recognition. A businessman who has contributed to infrastructure, hospitality, and urban development. To critics, it raised eyebrows because Gilbert Chagoury's name has been mentioned in controversies before. During the 1990s, under General Sani Abacha's military rule, investigators linked businessmen to financial dealings tied to the regime. In the United States, Gilbert Chagoury entered a plea agreement relating to campaign finance violations. He was fined and later received a presidential pardon in the United States. And during the global investigation of Abacha's hidden wealth, financial institutions in Africa and Europe were scrutinized, and Chagoury has consistently denied criminal wrongdoing. And years later, he would receive one of Nigeria's highest national awards. But you see, the bigger question here is, when private families shape cities and infrastructure of a country, is that really progress or quiet control? I mean, the Eko Atlantic is stunning, but Lagos is a city where millions struggle every day. So the question is, who benefits when private power build public spaces? And perhaps by now you might have known that the loudest people in Nigeria aren't always the most powerful. And the Chagoury story teaches something very important. If you want permanence in an unstable system, don't chase the microphone, build the stage. And once you build the stage, everyone else performs on it. If you love stories like this, like, comment, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.